The judge was 5 minutes away from handing my grandson's fortune to the woman who threw him away like trash a decade ago. Her lies were perfect. We had no proof. I was ready to lose everything. Then my 16-year-old grandson stood up, plugged in his laptop and told the judge, "I can prove she wasn't here." In 10 minutes he didn't just dismantle her case, he turned her greedy lawsuit into a criminal investigation. She came for a payday, she left in handcuffs. My daughter left her 5-year-old autistic son at my door and never came back. That was 11 years ago. I raised Ethan myself. Everyone said he'd never succeed. Too different. Too difficult. They were wrong. By 16 he built a software worth $3.2 million. Then the news covered his story. 2 weeks later my doorbell rang. Rachel, my daughter, standing there with a lawyer and documents claiming she'd been involved the whole time. Custody papers, financial records, visit logs, all lies, but they looked real. Our lawyer reviewed them and said without proof they're forged, we might lose. I panicked. Ethan didn't. He leaned over and whispered, "Let her talk." I stared at him. We were about to lose everything and he wanted her to keep lying, but he just sat there calm, watching, and I had no idea what he was about to do. My name is Vivian. I am 68 years old and this is my story. Rachel showed up on a Friday in November 2010 with Ethan and one backpack. "Just for the weekend, Mom," she said at my front door. "I need a break, please." Ethan stood beside her, 5 years old, staring at the porch floor. He rocked back and forth, heel to toe. His hands covered his ears even though we weren't making noise. "Rachel, what's? I'll call you Sunday." She was already turning away, walking fast toward her car. She didn't hug Ethan, didn't kiss him goodbye, just left. I watched her taillights disappear down the street. Ethan kept rocking. I taught elementary school for 35 years, had a few autistic students mainstreamed into my class over the decades, always with aides and specialists handling the hard parts. But standing there with my grandson, I realized I knew almost nothing about actually living with it. "Hey Ethan," I said softly, "want to come inside?" He didn't look at me, didn't move, just rocked. I picked up his backpack. It was light, too light for a weekend stay. I opened the door wider, waited. After a minute, Ethan walked past me into the house, still covering his ears. The refrigerator hummed. He flinched. The heater clicked on. He pressed his hands tighter to his head. I closed the door as quietly as I could. He was already in the living room, crouched in the corner by the bookshelf. "Are you hungry?" I asked. "Nothing. Thirsty." He rocked faster. I went to the kitchen, poured water in a yellow plastic cup I kept for when he visited. Those visits were rare, maybe twice a year, always short. I brought the cup to him, set it on the floor an arm's length away. He stopped rocking, looked at the cup, then went back to rocking. That first night was worse. I made chicken nuggets and fries for dinner because Rachel once told me that's what he ate. Ethan took one look at the plate and turned away. I tried pasta. No. I tried a sandwich. He pushed it across the table. "What do you want to eat?" I asked. He hummed a low sound in his throat and stared at the wall. I gave him crackers. He ate 3. Bedtime was a disaster. I tried to help him brush his teeth and he screamed. Not crying, screaming like I was hurting him. I stepped back and he stopped, but he was shaking. "Okay," I said. "Okay, you can skip it tonight." I put him in the guest room, tucked the blanket around him the way I thought kids liked. He threw it off. I tried again. He screamed. I left the blanket at the foot of the bed and backed out of the room. He didn't sleep. I could hear him humming all night, that same low sound over and over. I didn't sleep either. Saturday morning I called Rachel. No answer. Left a message. "Rachel, honey, call me back. I need to know what Ethan eats, what his routines are." She didn't call. I called again Saturday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night. Nothing. 1 week became 2. I took Ethan to the pediatrician. The doctor confirmed what I already suspected. He's autistic. "Mrs. Cooper, has anyone talked to you about getting him evaluated?" His mother was supposed to handle that. The doctor nodded slowly. "Well, you're handling it now." I enrolled him in therapy immediately. Speech, occupational, behavioral. I learned he needed the same breakfast every single day. scrambled eggs, toast cut corner to corner, nothing touching on the plate. I learned the route to therapy had to be exactly the same or he'd scream in the car. I learned not to touch him unless he initiated it. I got good at watching instead of doing. 2 weeks after Ethan arrived, I found him in the living room at dawn. He was on the floor with a bin of toy cars I'd bought him, lining them up in a perfect row. It wasn't random. He'd arranged them by color, but in a way I couldn't understand at first. I sat on the couch and watched. Red car, then one that was slightly more orange, then one more orange than the last, then yellow-green, on and on. This gradient was so subtle I had to squint to see the differences. He'd organized them by shade perfectly. "That's amazing, Ethan," I said. He didn't look at me, but he kept arranging. December came. Rachel still hadn't called. I tried a different approach with Ethan. I stopped trying to get him to look at me, stopped pushing him to talk. I just made sure everything was the same every single day. Same breakfast, same time, same shows on TV, same bedtime routine that he'd finally tolerated, which was just me saying goodnight from the doorway. He calmed down. Not happy but less frantic. He'd sit in the living room with me while I read. On Christmas Eve I made sugar cookies. Ethan didn't help, but he sat at the table and watched me cut shapes. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and butter. The phone rang. I grabbed it, hoping. Rachel. Mom. Her voice was flat. Tired. Rachel. Thank God. When are you coming to get him? He needs you. I need to know. I can't do this anymore, Mom. I stopped moving. What? He's yours. I tried. I really tried, but I can't. Her voice cracked. I just can't. Rachel, wait. The line went dead. I called back. It rang and rang. No answer. I tried again. Voicemail. I stood there in the kitchen with the phone in my hand, the cookies burning in the oven, smoke starting to curl up. I turned off the oven, pulled out the tray. The cookies were black. I sat down on the floor, just sat there with my back against the cabinet. Ethan appeared in the doorway. He looked at me for a long moment, longer than he'd ever looked at me before. Then he walked to the counter, picked up the yellow cup I'd given him that first day, and brought it to me. He set it on the floor beside me. I looked at the cup, looked at him. He went back to the living room. I cried sitting there on the kitchen floor with a burnt cookie sheet and a yellow plastic cup. The years after that blurred together. I kept everything exactly the same for Ethan. When he turned 6, he became obsessed with a set of magnetic letters I'd bought him. He'd arranged them on the refrigerator for hours. Not words, patterns, groups, sequences I couldn't understand. Then he started drawing symbols in little notebooks from the dollar store. Circles, lines, tick marks, tracking something only he understood. Therapy, I asked about it. The therapist shook her head. He's tracking his world. It helps him feel secure. Let him do it. So I did. He filled notebook after notebook with his symbols and marks. By the time he turned 7, the symbols became letters. Then short words. Eat, toast, school, home. Simple things but written in neat block letters. At 8 he was writing full sentences. Times, what he ate, where we went, what happened. He learned to make eye contact, sometimes little flickers. He learned to tolerate the grocery store if we went at the same time every week. One morning in spring when he was 8, I was making breakfast. Eggs, toast, same as always. Ethan sat at the table with his notebook, writing something. Why did Mom leave? I nearly dropped the spatula. I turned around. Ethan was looking at his notebook, not at me, but he'd spoken. 3 years of mostly silence, then single words, and now this, a full sentence, a question. I sat down across from him. She said she couldn't handle it. He nodded once, wrote something in his notebook, went back to staring at the page. I got up, finished making breakfast, put his plate in front of him. Then I went to the bathroom and cried where he couldn't hear me. He'd spoken. He'd asked the question I didn't know how to answer. But I told him the truth. That's all I could do. The truth. And eggs and toast every morning and the same yellow cup. That's what I had to give him. A year after Ethan first spoke to me, the school called with a problem. It was September 2014. Ethan was 9, starting 4th grade. I thought we'd moved past the hardest parts. He was talking in full sentences now, eating in the cafeteria without meltdowns. Then, Principal Andrews wanted to move him. Mrs. Cooper, we need to discuss Ethan's placement, he said over the phone. Ethan would be better served in our special needs classroom. The other students are moving at a different pace. I spent 3 days preparing. I printed every report card, every therapy progress note, every piece of documentation I'd kept in folders. Ethan's reading was above grade level. His math was 2 years ahead. His handwriting was careful and neat, every letter perfectly formed. The problem wasn't that he couldn't learn. The problem was that he learned differently. The meeting was on a Friday afternoon. Principal Andrews sat at the head of the table with the staff. They argued he didn't interact with peers, that he refused to participate. I pulled out my documents. This is Ethan's reading comprehension test from last month. 97%. 7th grade level. Next document, math assessment 100%. 5th grade material. I stacked the papers in front of Principal Andrews. He's come further in 4 years than anyone predicted. Not because he's in a special room with low expectations, but because people believed he could do more. I won. They agreed to draft an IEP with accommodations rather than moving him. That evening I spread all the meeting notes across the kitchen table, organizing them into a 3-ring binder. Color-coded tabs for medical, educational, therapy, legal. Ethan came in from the living room. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Making sure the school can't forget what you can do." He moved closer, looked at the papers. "Can I help?" We worked together for an hour. He studied my system, then pointed to the therapy tab. "These should be sorted by date, then by type. Speech separate from occupational, separate from behavioral." He was right. He rearranged the entire section in 10 minutes, creating a logical, clean system. He understood organization on a level I'd never reach. Pattern and structure and order. It came naturally to him the way breathing came to other people. The next year, when Ethan turned 10, I bought him a tablet. Within a week, he downloaded a scanning app and started photographing every page of his notebooks, creating digital copies. "Why are you doing that?" I asked. "So I don't lose it," he said. Ethan started noticing patterns everywhere. Traffic lights, pricing errors at the grocery store. At home, he asked for his birth certificate. Then his school enrollment papers. "I just want to see everything. Make sure it's all there." I helped him scan everything into his tablet. Birth records, medical history, every legal document. "What are you building?" I asked once. "A system," he said, "so nothing gets lost." The future started taking shape the summer Ethan turned 12. In June 2017, he discovered coding. I found him at the kitchen table with my old laptop open, staring at lines of gibberish. "What are you doing?" "Learning Python." He spent the entire summer on that laptop. By August, he was showing me programs that sorted files or found duplicates. In September, I used the last of my savings to buy him a real computer. One evening in October, he called me to his room. "I want to show you something." He opened a document, ran his program, and long strings of numbers appeared. "That's the document signature, like a fingerprint," he explained. He changed one word in the document, ran the program again, and the numbers changed. "See? The signature changed. That means the document was altered. So you can tell if someone edits something. And when and how many times." He looked at me, making eye contact. "So things stay true." The next year, he wanted to digitize all my binders. The school meeting notes, all of it. "I want everything in the system." "Why?" "Because people lie." "Why did Principal Andrews try to move me when I was 9? Fair point. We spent weeks scanning years of advocacy and proof. He didn't just scan them. He added timestamps, verification codes, hash values. "Each document connects to the ones before and after it like a chain," he said. "If someone tries to change one link, the whole chain breaks." He turned 14 in November 2018. One afternoon, he asked for old records, receipts, calendars, bank statements from 2010. "I need to know the timeline," he said. "When things happened. What was real?" We brought the boxes inside. We scanned grocery receipts, bank statements proving I'd never received money from Rachel, phone bills proving she'd never called. I thought he was healing from his past. I didn't know he was building armor for the future. He started staying up later, working on 3 monitors. "What are you making?" I asked one night. Something that will help people know what's real and what's fake. What actually happened versus what someone claims happened. Ethan was 15 when he finished it. Spring 2020. This is it, he said, showing me the verification system. It analyzes documents, checks if they've been altered, when they were created. It catches forgeries. I'm going to sell it, he said. To who? Security companies. Fraud prevention. Anyone who needs to verify documents are real. He started reaching out to companies. The first sale came in June $20,000. By January 2021, he had 6 more clients. Then the big offers started coming. Tech companies wanted exclusive rights. I want to sell it completely, Ethan told our lawyer. I don't want to manage licensing. Just sell it and be done. He sold it in March for $3.2 million. The local news did a story. Local teen creates revolutionary security software. I watched it with him. How do you feel? I asked. Fine, he said. But he wasn't celebrating. He was waiting. 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang. Rachel stood there with a lawyer, Stephen Walsh. Ethan, she said, looking past me. Can we come in? This is important. Ethan appeared behind me. Come in, he said, his face blank. They sat at my kitchen table. Mrs. Cooper, we're here to discuss custody and financial guardianship, Walsh said. My client, Rachel Cooper, has maintained parental rights and wishes to resume active custody. That's a lie, I said. She hasn't called in 11 years. She's been co-parenting from a distance, Walsh said smoothly. He pulled out papers, custody documents, co-parenting agreements, financial records. These show Mrs. Cooper has maintained legal parental rights. They looked real. Professional. Those are fake, I said. They're properly notarized and filed, Walsh replied. Unless you can prove otherwise. I looked at Ethan. Ethan, what do we do? We should get a lawyer, he said. We hired Linda Reyes, a family law attorney. She reviewed Rachel's documents. These look legitimate, she said. Without hard evidence that her documents are fake, we might lose. She never legally terminated parental rights. Without proof of abandonment, she's still his parent on paper. So she can just take him? And the money? She's after financial guardianship, Linda said. Can we prove they are forged? I couldn't. The deposition started 2 weeks later. Rachel lied smoothly about visiting monthly, sending money, calling regularly. She provided specific dates and amounts. It was a detailed, consistent narrative. Ethan's deposition was short. He answered honestly that he didn't remember her visits or money. Walsh looked pleased, thinking Ethan's memory was poor. The night before court, I found Ethan at his computer at 3 a.m. Just tell the truth tomorrow, he said quietly. Morning came. We drove to the courthouse. Rachel sat with Walsh, looking like a concerned mother. Walsh presented his case. The documents, the financial records, the narrative of a mother who never gave up rights. Judge Harrison reviewed them. She looked at Linda's evidence, my binders. Mrs. Cooper, the judge said to me, I understand you've done excellent work, but legally, without proof that his mother abandoned her parental rights, her claim has standing. We were losing. I looked at Ethan. She's lying. We have to stop her, I whispered. Let her talk, he whispered back. Then Ethan stood up. Yes, Your Honor. I have evidence. He picked up a bag and walked to the witness stand. May I connect this to the display? He pulled out his laptop. Your client presented fraudulent documents 6 weeks ago. I'm presenting analysis of those documents now. These documents claim to be from 2011 through 2020, Ethan said. But the digital metadata shows they were created 6 weeks ago, right after the news story about my sale aired. Walsh objected. Metadata can be manipulated. Not in this case, Ethan said. The signature verification shows additional discrepancies. He ran a program analyzing Rachel's signature. The pressure patterns don't match. These signatures were forged. Then he pulled up the timeline. These are my records. I've been documenting my life since I was 9 years old. He showed spreadsheets, scanned documents, timestamps. Mrs. Cooper claims she visited in December 2013. Here is my grandmother's calendar, photos with timestamps, and therapy notes confirming no mother was present. She claims she sent money orders. Here are 7 years of complete bank records. No deposits from Rachel Cooper. Every claim Rachel made, Ethan demolished with proof. I built the verification system to analyze documents. It's what I sold last month. Everything is cross-referenced and verified. The system makes it impossible to alter retroactively. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harrison looked at Rachel. Mrs. Cooper, can you explain these discrepancies? Rachel fell apart. She stammered, contradicted herself, and finally admitted she didn't keep records. Mrs. Cooper, Judge Harrison said coldly, did you or did you not falsify custody documents? Rachel looked sick. I've seen enough, the judge said. Rachel Cooper, I find your testimony not credible and your documentation fraudulent. Full custody and guardianship is awarded to Vivian Cooper. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney for investigation of perjury and fraud. Outside the courthouse, I looked at Ethan. You knew. You've been protecting us all along. Ethan nodded once. Rachel got 2 years probation and community service. Ethan started a new company, hiring autistic people to do software testing. One Tuesday evening we were eating dinner. Ethan put his phone down. Vivian. Yes. I know what you gave up for me. You stopped going places. You turned down trips. You could have sent me away like she did, he continued. You're my grandson, I replied. But you chose it every day, he said. It mattered. I reached across the table. You were worth every single day. He nodded. I know that now. I drove home smiling. My phone buzzed at a red light. A text from Ethan. Thank you. So that's my story. If you were in my shoes, could you forgive your daughter? Let me know in the comments.